The arrow whistled past Ilara's ear and struck the oak tree behind her with a sharp thud. She pressed her back against the rough bark and held her breath. The Scottish Highlands stretched before her in rolling green waves, but somewhere in those hills, English soldiers were hunting her. She had been running for 3 days. Her dark hair hung loose around her shoulders, and mud stained her simple brown dress. The leather satchel at her side held secrets that could end this bloody war between Scotland and England. Lord Blackthorne had trusted her with information about English troop movements, supply routes and battle plans. He believed she was loyal to England. He had no idea that Ilara MacLeod served Scotland with every beat of her heart. Another arrow flew overhead. Ilara ducked lower and peered through the trees. 3 English soldiers moved through the forest, their red coats bright against the green foliage. She needed to reach the Scottish border before they caught her. The information in her satchel could save hundreds of Scottish lives. She waited until the soldiers passed, then crept deeper into the woods. Her bare feet made no sound on the soft earth. She had learned to move like a ghost during her years as a spy. Lord Blackthorne thought she was the daughter of a dead English merchant. He never suspected that her father had been Duncan MacLeod, a Scottish warrior who died fighting for his homeland. The sun climbed higher as Ilara made her way north. She avoided the main roads and stuck to deer paths and hidden valleys. By midday, she reached a stream and knelt to drink. The cold water felt good on her parched throat. She splashed some on her face and looked at her reflection in the clear water. Her green eyes looked tired, but they still held fire. She would complete this mission. A branch snapped behind her. Ilara spun around and saw a man standing at the edge of the clearing. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair and piercing blue eyes. He wore a kilt in green and blue tartan, and a sword hung at his side. Everything about him screamed Scottish warrior. "You are far from home, lass," he said in a deep voice with a thick Highland accent. Ilara's hand moved to the small knife at her belt. "I might say the same of you." The man stepped closer. "These are my lands. I am Laird Kieran MacBride of Clan MacBride." His eyes studied her face. "And you are English." "Half English," Ilara said carefully. She could not reveal her true identity, not yet. "My mother was Scottish." Kieran nodded. "That explains the fire in your eyes. What brings you to the Highlands, lass? These are dangerous times for anyone to travel alone." "I seek passage to Edinburgh," Ilara lied smoothly. "I have family there. Edinburgh is weeks of travel from here, and the roads are crawling with soldiers from both sides." Kieran's expression grew serious. "You would not survive the journey alone."
Ilara lifted her chin. "I have survived this long."
"Aye, but luck runs out." Kieran moved closer until she could see the gold flecks in his blue eyes. "I have a proposition for you, lass." "What is your name?" "Ilara," she said, then wished she had given a false name. "Ilara," he spoke her name like a prayer. "You need protection and safe passage. I need a wife." The words hit her like a physical blow. "A wife?" "The clans are gathering for war," Kieran explained. "The English press closer to our borders every day. Some of my own people whisper that I am too young to lead them into battle. I am 28 years old, but I have no wife, no heirs. They fear that if I fall in battle, Clan MacBride will fall with me." Ilara stared at him. "You would marry a stranger?" "I would marry a woman with Scottish blood, who has the courage to cross the Highlands alone." His voice grew urgent. "This war will consume us all if we do not find a way to end it. Perhaps a marriage alliance could be the first step toward peace." "What do you mean?" "Your English blood, combined with your Scottish heritage, could help bridge the gap between our peoples. Marry me, and I will ensure your safe passage anywhere you wish to go. More than that, I will use our union to seek peace instead of war." Alara's mind raced. This was perfect. As the wife of a Scottish laird, she would have access to military information that could help her people. She could continue her work as a spy while appearing to be an innocent bride. But the deception tasted bitter in her mouth. Kieran seemed like an honorable man. He deserved better than a lie. "Marry me to end the war," Kieran said, his voice soft but determined. "Help me show both sides that English and Scottish blood can unite instead of spill." Alara looked into his earnest blue eyes and made her choice. Yes, the word surprised her as much as it surprised him. She had expected to refuse, to find another way to complete her mission, but something in Kieran's voice, in his dream of peace, called to her heart. "Yes?" Kieran stepped closer. "You will marry me?" "I will." The lie came easier this time. "But I have conditions." "Name them." "I keep my freedom to travel. I will not be locked away in your castle like a decoration." Kieran smiled, and the expression transformed his serious face. "Lass, I would never cage a wild bird. Your spirit is what drew me to you. And if this marriage brings no peace, if the war continues, then we will face it together." He held out his hand. "Come, we ride to Castle MacBride. The priest can marry us before sunset." Hilary hesitated for a heartbeat, then took his hand. His fingers were warm and calloused from swordwork. The touch sent an unexpected shiver up her arm. They walked to where his horse waited at the edge of the clearing. The stallion was black as midnight with intelligent dark eyes. Kieran helped Alara mount behind him, and she wrapped her arms around his waist. The satchel of secrets pressed against her side. As they rode through the highland valleys, Kieran pointed out landmarks and told her about his clan. "We have held these lands for 300 years, he said. "My father died last winter, and the burden of leadership fell to me. Some think I am too eager for peace, too willing to compromise. What do you think? I think too many good men have died already. My younger brother fell at the Battle of Stirling Bridge. My best friend died defending our southern border. If marriage can accomplish what swords have not, I will try it." Alara felt her chest tighten. Every death in this war weighed on her soul. She fought for Scotland, but she took no joy in English deaths either. They were all just men trying to protect their homes and families. "Tell me about Castle MacBride," she said, changing the subject. "It sits on a hill overlooking Loch MacBride. The walls are thick stone, and the halls echo with centuries of MacBride voices. It can be lonely, especially in winter." He glanced back at her. Perhaps it will be less lonely with a wife. The genuine warmth in his voice made guilt twist in Alara's stomach. She was deceiving a good man for the sake of her mission. But Scotland needed the information she carried. How many Scottish soldiers would die if she failed to deliver it? Castle MacBride appeared as they crested a hill. It was everything Kieran had described, a strong stone fortress overlooking a dark blue loch. Banners in MacBride colours flew from the towers, and smoke rose from the chimneys. It looked like a place where a person could be happy. The gates opened as they approached. Lairds in MacBride colours called out greetings to their laird. Men and women came out of the castle to see who Kieran had brought home. Alara felt dozens of curious eyes on her as Kieran helped her down from the horse. "My people," Kieran said loudly, his voice carrying across the courtyard, "I present Alara, who has agreed to become my wife and your lady." A murmur ran through the crowd. Alara saw surprise, curiosity and some suspicion on the faces around her. An older woman with greying hair stepped forward. "Laird, you said nothing of taking a wife," the woman said. Sometimes fate moves faster than plans. Moira. Kieran's tone was respectful, but firm. Alara will bring honor to Clan McBride. Moira's sharp eyes studied Alara from head to toe. She looks half-starved, and her dress is torn. Where did you find her? In the forest, seeking safe passage. Kieran placed a protective hand on Alara's shoulder. She has shown great courage, traveling alone through dangerous lands. English lands or Scottish lands? Asked a young man with red hair. Both, Alara answered before Kieran could speak. The war makes all lands dangerous. The young man nodded approvingly. Aye, that it does. I am Finn McBride, the Laird's cousin. And I am Moira McBride, keeper of this castle, the older woman said. Her expression softened slightly. Come, child. You need food and clean clothes before any wedding. Alara followed Moira into the castle. The great hall was warm and welcoming, with tapestries on the walls and a fire crackling in the enormous fireplace. Servants bustled about preparing for the evening meal. Everything spoke of prosperity and order. Moira led her up a winding stone staircase to a chamber with a window overlooking the loch. This will be your room until the wedding, Moira said. After that you will share the Laird's chamber. The thought of sharing Kieran's bed made Alara's cheeks burn. She had not considered that part of their arrangement. She was a spy, not truly a wife. How could she maintain her deception in such intimate circumstances? Moira, she said carefully, the Laird and I barely know each other. Perhaps we could take time to become acquainted before sharing a marriage bed. Moira's eyes twinkled. Aye, that would be wise. Kieran is a good man, but he can be impatient when he sets his mind to something. I will speak to him about propriety. Relief flooded through Alara. Thank you. Now, let us find you something suitable to wear. Moira opened a chest and pulled out a dress of soft blue wool. This belonged to Kieran's sister before she married and moved to the lowlands. It should fit you well enough. As Alara changed clothes, Moira asked gentle questions about her background. Alara stuck to her story about having a Scottish mother and seeking family in Edinburgh. The lies came smoothly now, but each one felt like a small betrayal. The Laird speaks of ending the war through marriage, Moira said as she braided Alara's hair. It is a noble dream, but dreams do not stop arrows or swords. What do you think it will take to end the war? Moira's hands stilled for a moment. Understanding, perhaps. Too many on both sides see only enemies where they might see neighbours. Your mixed blood might help some see that English and Scottish folk are not so different. And if they refuse to see, then this war will continue until one side destroys the other completely. Moira's voice grew sad. I have buried too many young men already. If your marriage to our Laird can save even one life, it will be worth the attempt. The weight of responsibility settled heavier on Alara's shoulders. These people were counting on her to help bring peace, but she was here to steal their secrets for Scotland's advantage. Was she helping to end the war, or was she making it worse? A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Come, Moira called. Kieran entered, and his eyes widened when he saw Alara in the blue dress. You look beautiful, he said simply. Thank you. Alara felt heat rise in her cheeks again. Moira has been very kind. Father Malcolm has arrived to perform the ceremony, Kieran said. Are you ready? Alara's heart hammered against her ribs. Once she spoke the marriage vows, there would be no turning back. She would be bound to this man by sacred words and clan honor. The deception would become even deeper. But the satchel at her side reminded her of her duty. Scottish lives depended on the information she carried. She could not let personal feelings interfere with her mission. I am ready, she said. The wedding took place in the castle's small chapel. Most of Clan MacBride crowded into the stone room to witness their laird's marriage. Candles flickered on the altar, and the air smelled of incense and pine boughs. Father Malcolm was an elderly priest with kind eyes and a gentle voice. He spoke of love, honor, and commitment, as if he truly believed Elara and Kieran had found something special together. The words cut deep into Elara's conscience. You, Kieran MacBride, take this woman to be your wife, to honor and protect her for all the days of your life. I do. Kieran's voice was strong and sure. Do you, Elara, take this man to be your husband, to stand beside him in times of peace and war? The chapel fell silent. Every eye was on her. Kieran waited with trust and hope shining in his blue eyes. The satchel of secrets seemed to burn against her side. I do, she whispered. Father Malcolm smiled and blessed their union. Kieran leaned down and kissed her gently. His lips were warm and soft, and for a moment, Elara forgot everything except the tenderness of the gesture. The clan cheered and called out blessings. Finn slapped Kieran on the back and grinned at Elara. Welcome to the family, my lady. The celebration continued late into the night, the great hall filled with music, laughter and dancing. Elara sat beside Kieran at the high table and tried to look like a happy bride, but guilt gnawed at her with every toast, every blessing, every kind word from her new clan. You seem troubled, Kieran said quietly. Do you regret our bargain already? No, Elara said quickly. I am simply overwhelmed. This morning I was alone in the forest. Tonight I am a laird's wife, surrounded by new family. Change can be frightening, Kieran agreed. But you are not alone anymore. Whatever brought you to the Highlands, whatever you are running from, you have a place here now. His words made tears prick at Elara's eyes. He was offering her everything she had never dared to hope for: safety, belonging, acceptance, and she was going to betray it all. Kieran, she began, then stopped. She could not tell him the truth. Not yet. Maybe not ever. What is it, lass? Nothing. Just thank you for today, for everything. He covered her hand with his. You need not thank me. We made a bargain that serves us both. As the evening wore on, Elara learned more about her new family. Finn was Kieran's closest advisor and had fought beside him in several battles. Moira had run the castle since Kieran's mother died, and the clan trusted her judgment completely. There was young Jamie, barely 18, who looked at Kieran with hero worship in his eyes. Old Duncan, the weapons master, who had taught Kieran to fight. Margaret, the healer, who knew every herb and remedy. They were good people. They loved their laird and their land. They wanted peace as much as anyone, but they would fight to the death to protect their home. Elara's information could help Scottish forces strike at them when they were most vulnerable. When the celebration finally ended, Moira escorted Elara back to her chamber. The laird will sleep in his own room tonight, she said with a knowing smile. He understands that some things cannot be rushed. Elara changed into a simple nightgown and sat by the window looking out at the dark loch. Stars reflected on the water like scattered diamonds. It was beautiful and peaceful. She could understand why the MacBrides loved this place so fiercely. She pulled the satchel from beneath her bed and opened it carefully. Maps, letters, and coded messages filled the leather bag. Troop positions, supply routes, planned attacks. Everything Lord Blackthorn had trusted her to carry to his allies. Information that could turn the tide of the war in Scotland's favour. But now she had seen the faces of the people who would suffer. Kieran, with his dreams of peace, young Jamie, who still believed in heroes, Moira, who had already buried too many young men. How could she use knowledge that might lead to their deaths? A soft knock at her door made her hastily hide the satchel. "Come in." Kieran entered, carrying a tray with bread, cheese, and wine. "I thought you might be hungry. You ate little at the feast." "Thank you." Alara accepted the tray gratefully. She was hungry, but nerves had kept her from eating much during the celebration. Kieran sat in the chair across from her. "Are you comfortable here? Is there anything you need?" "Everyone has been very kind." Alara bit into the bread. It was fresh and warm. "Your people love you. They loved my father and his father before him. I hope to earn the same loyalty." Kieran's expression grew serious. "Alara, I want you to know that I meant what I said about seeking peace. I will not use our marriage as an excuse to make war on England. What if England makes war on you? Then we will defend ourselves, but I will not be the one to strike the first blow." He leaned forward. "You could help with that. Your English connections, your understanding of both cultures, you could serve as a bridge between our peoples." Alara nearly choked on her wine. "My English connections. You lived among the English. You understand how they think, what they want, that knowledge could be valuable in negotiations." I do not know any important English lords or officials," Alara lied. "Perhaps not yet. But as Lady MacBride, you would have opportunities to meet them. English nobles sometimes visit Scotland under flags of truce. You could help me understand their true intentions." The irony was almost too bitter to bear. Kieran wanted her to spy on the English, while she was actually spying on him for Scotland. The web of deception grew more tangled with every conversation. "I will do what I can to help," she said carefully. "That is all I ask." Kieran stood and moved toward the door. "Rest well, my wife. Tomorrow I will show you more of our lands." After he left, Alara sat in the darkness and wondered what she had gotten herself into. Her mission was simple: deliver the information to Scottish forces and help them plan their attacks. But nothing about her situation was simple anymore. She was married to a man who trusted her completely. She lived among people who had welcomed her as family, and worst of all, she was beginning to care about them. The thought of Scottish soldiers attacking Castle MacBride made her feel sick. But if she failed in her mission, how many Scottish soldiers would die in hopeless battles? How many Scottish families would lose fathers, sons, and brothers? She served a greater cause than her own comfort or even her own conscience. Alara fell asleep, clutching the satchel, torn between duty and desire, loyalty and love. The next morning dawned bright and clear. Kieran kept his promise to show her the MacBride lands. They rode out together after breaking their fast, with Finn and 2 guards as escorts. The highland scenery was breathtaking: rolling hills covered in purple heather, clear streams tumbling over rocks, ancient oak groves where deer grazed peacefully. "My ancestors have held these lands for 10 generations, Kieran said as they paused on a hilltop. "Every stone, every tree, every blade of grass is part of who we are." "It is beautiful," Alara said, and meant it. "Aye, but beauty will not stop English armies. Look there." He pointed south. 3 miles in that direction, English soldiers patrol the border. They grow bolder every week, pushing deeper into Scottish territory. "Have there been battles?" "Skirmishes mostly. Raids on both sides." Kieran's jaw tightened. "Last month, they burned a village just 5 miles from here. Women and children lost their homes." Alara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Highland wind. "Were any killed?" 2 old men who tried to defend their families. The women and children were spared, but they had nowhere to go. "We took them in at the castle." "You did the right thing." "Did I?" "Some of my men wanted to ride south and burn an English village in return." They said I was weak for taking in refugees instead of seeking revenge. Kieran looked at her with troubled eyes. What do you think, wife? Is mercy weakness? The question cut straight to Ilara's heart. Here was a man trying to do right in an impossible situation, and she was deceiving him. I think mercy takes more courage than revenge, she said quietly. Even when your enemies show no mercy in return. Especially then. Ilara met his gaze. Someone must be first to choose peace over war. Kieran smiled, and the expression chased the shadows from his face. You understand. That is why I knew you were the right woman to marry. Together, perhaps we can find a way to end this madness. They rode on, and Kieran showed her tenant farms, a mill by a rushing stream, and a small village where MacBride people lived and worked. Everywhere they went, people called out greetings and blessings. Children ran alongside their horses, laughing and waving. It was clear that Kieran was not just their Laird but their protector and friend. The people trust you, Ilara observed. They trust the MacBride name. I pray I prove worthy of it. Kieran's expression grew thoughtful. My father ruled through strength. He was a great warrior who never lost a battle. But strength alone is not enough anymore. This war is different from the old clan feuds. It threatens to destroy everything we hold dear. What makes it different? The English do not just want to defeat us. They want to erase us completely. Our language, our customs, our way of life. They see it all as rebellion that must be crushed. Kieran's voice grew passionate. But we are not English. We never will be. This is our home, our heritage. We have as much right to exist as they do. His words reminded Ilara why she fought for Scotland in the first place. The English did want to destroy Scottish culture and independence. That was why her mission mattered so much, but seeing the human cost of war made everything more complicated. They returned to the castle as the sun began to set. Ilara's legs ached from the long ride, but her heart felt fuller than it had in years. She was beginning to understand what it meant to belong somewhere, to be part of something larger than herself. That evening she sat with the women of the clan as they worked on mending and embroidery. Margaret the healer taught her about Highland herbs. Young Kaim Fing's sister showed her how to weave MacBride patterns. Even stern Moira seemed to approve of her efforts to learn their ways. You have good hands for needlework, Moira said, examining Ilara's stitches. With practice, you will make fine tapestries for the castle. I would like that, Ilara said, surprising herself. She had never cared about domestic skills before. Her life as a spy had required other talents, but there was something peaceful about sitting with other women, sharing stories and laughter while their hands stayed busy. Tell us about your life. Before, Kaim, he said. What was it like living among the English? Lara chose her words carefully. Lonely, mostly. I never felt like I truly belonged there. And now? Margaret asked, with a knowing smile. Now I feel hopeful. It was true, and that realization frightened her. She was supposed to be here temporarily, just long enough to complete her mission. She had not expected to form real attachments to these people. Later that night, Kieran visited her chamber again. This time he brought no food, only himself and a serious expression. Ilara, I must ask something of you, he said, without preamble. Her heart leaped into her throat. Had he discovered her true purpose? What is it? Tomorrow, an English delegation arrives under a flag of truce. They request a meeting to discuss prisoner exchanges and other matters of war. Kieran's eyes searched her face. I want you there when I meet with them. Me? Why? Because you understand the English mind. You can help me read their true intentions behind their diplomatic words. He paused, Also, your presence might remind them that English and Scottish blood can unite in marriage. It could make them more willing to consider other forms of unity. Ilara's mind raced. This could be exactly the opportunity she needed. English delegates would have current information about troop movements and battle plans. She might learn things that would help Scotland even more than the papers in her satchel. But it also meant continuing her deception in front of people who might recognize her as Lord Blackthorn's agent. "I will do whatever you think best," she said carefully. "Good." Kieran seemed relieved. "I confess, I am nervous about this meeting. The English have never requested negotiations before. Either they are genuinely interested in peace, or this is some kind of trap." "What kind of trap?" "They could be gathering information about our defenses, or perhaps they plan to take hostages." Kieran's hand moved unconsciously to his sword hilt. "I have increased the guard and made preparations for treachery, but I still hope for the best."
That is wise.
"Ilara." Kieran moved closer. "If something happens tomorrow, if the English prove false, I want you to promise me something." "What?" "Promise you will flee to safety. Do not try to stay and help. Your life is more precious to me than any castle or clan." The sincerity in his voice made tears burn behind Ilara's eyes. "Kieran, promise me." "I promise." The lie tasted like ashes in her mouth. The next morning dawned grey and cold. Ilara dressed carefully in her finest gown, a deep green wool that Moira had altered to fit her. She braided her hair in the Highland style and wore the MacBride pin that Kieran had given her as a wedding gift. The English delegation arrived at midday. Ilara watched from a window as they approached the castle gates. There were 6 men on horseback, all wearing fine clothes and carrying banners of truce. Her heart nearly stopped when she recognized the leader. Sir Edmund Hartwell was one of Lord Blackthorn's most trusted commanders. He had been present at several meetings where Ilara had reported her intelligence. If he recognized her, her mission and possibly her life would be over. "They look peaceful enough," Kieran said, joining her at the window, "but looks can deceive." "Yes," Ilara whispered. "They can." The delegation was escorted into the great hall with all due ceremony. Kieran took his place in the Laird's chair, with Ilara seated beside him. Finn and other clan leaders flanked them. The room was full of MacBride warriors, their hands never far from their weapons. Sir Edmund strode forward and bowed formally. "Laird MacBride, I bring greetings from His Majesty's forces in Scotland. I am Sir Edmund Hartwell, acting under the authority of Lord Commander Blackthorn." Ilara kept her face carefully neutral at the mention of her handler's name, but her heart pounded so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. "Sir Edmund." Kieran's voice was polite but cool. "You requested this meeting to discuss prisoner exchanges?" "Among other matters, yes." Sir Edmund's eyes swept the room and lingered for a moment on Ilara. "But first, allow me to congratulate you on your recent marriage. Your lady is quite beautiful." "Thank you." Kieran's hand found Ilara's and squeezed gently. "Lady MacBride has brought great joy to our clan." "Lady MacBride." Sir Edmund stepped closer, his eyes never leaving Ilara's face. "You seem familiar, my lady. Have we met before?" Ilara's mouth went dry. "I think not, Sir Edmund. I have spent little time among English nobles." He continued to study her. "You have the look of someone I know. Perhaps a relative?" "Many people share similar features," Ilara said carefully. "It often leads to such confusion." "Indeed." Sir Edmund finally looked away, but Ilara could feel his suspicion like a weight on her shoulders. The formal negotiations began. The English offered to exchange Scottish prisoners for English ones, but their terms were harsh. They wanted 2 Scottish prisoners for every English one returned. Kieran rejected the proposal immediately. "Scottish lives are not worth half of English ones," he said firmly. "We will exchange man for man, or not at all." "You are hardly in a position to make demands," Sir Edmund replied smoothly. "English forces control most of the border regions. Your people are trapped in these highland strongholds, while we hold the profitable lowlands." "We hold our freedom," Finn interjected hotly. "That is worth more than all your lowland gold." "Freedom?" Sir Edmund laughed. "You call this barbaric existence freedom? Living in stone towers, raiding each other like savages? England offers you civilization, order, prosperity." "England offers us chains," Kieran said quietly. "Gilded, perhaps, but chains nonetheless." The debate continued for hours. The English delegation made various offers and demands, but it became clear that they had no real interest in peace. They wanted submission, complete surrender of Scottish independence. Finally, Sir Edmund played his strongest card. "Perhaps, Laird MacBride, your new wife could help you see reason." "Lady MacBride, surely you understand the benefits of English rule. You have lived among civilized people. Can you not convince your husband that resistance is futile?" All eyes turned to Elara. This was the moment of truth. She could support the English position and perhaps save her cover, or she could stand with her new clan and risk exposure. She looked at Kieran's face, saw the trust and hope in his blue eyes. She thought of young Jamie, who believed in heroes, of Moira, who had welcomed her like a daughter, of all the MacBride people who had accepted her as family. "Sir Edmund," she said, rising to her feet, "I have indeed lived among the English. I have seen their version of civilization. I have also seen Highland honor, Highland courage, Highland love. I know which I prefer." The room erupted in cheers from the MacBride side. Kieran looked at her with such pride and affection that her heart nearly broke. She had chosen her side, but the choice might have doomed them all. Sir Edmund's eyes narrowed. "I see. And what does Lord Blackthorn think of his agent's new loyalties?" The words fell into the great hall like stones into still water. The cheering stopped. Every face turned toward Elara with shock, confusion, and growing anger. "What did you say?" Kieran's voice was deadly quiet. "Did you not know Laird MacBride? Your new wife is one of Lord Blackthorn's most valued spies. She has been feeding us information about Scottish movements for over 2 years." Sir Edmund smiled coldly. "Her real name is Elara MacLeod, and she carries intelligence that will help us crush the Scottish rebellion once and for all." The silence in the hall was deafening. Elara felt the weight of dozens of eyes, the shock and betrayal in every face. But it was Kieran's expression that cut deepest. The disbelief, the pain, the dawning understanding that everything between them had been built on lies. "Is this true?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Elara wanted to deny it, to find some way to explain that would make everything right again. But Sir Edmund knew too much, and her cover was completely blown. There was no point in more lies. "Yes," she said simply. The admission hit the room like a physical blow. Several clan members reached for their weapons. Finn started toward her with murder in his eyes, but Kieran held up a hand to stop him. "Wait." The Laird's voice was steady despite the betrayal written on his face. "Let her speak. Why, Elara? Why did you marry me if you are English spy?" "I am not English," she said desperately. "My father was Duncan MacLeod of Clan MacLeod. I became a spy to serve Scotland, not England." "Lies," Sir Edmund said. "You have served Lord Blackthorn faithfully for years." "I have deceived Lord Blackthorn for years," Elara shot back. "Every piece of information I gave him was false or useless. I was a double agent, feeding him lies while gathering real intelligence for Scotland." "Prove it," Kieran said quietly. Alara looked around the hall at all the angry, suspicious faces. These people had trusted her, accepted her, loved her even. Now they saw her as a traitor and spy. How could she prove her true loyalties? "The satchel in my room," she said. "It contains real English intelligence, troop movements, supply routes, battle plans. I was carrying it to Scottish forces when you found me in the forest." "Convenient," Sir Edmund sneered. "Any spy would claim to be serving the other side when caught." "Then examine the documents," Alara challenged. "See for yourself what intelligence I carry." Kieran nodded to Finn. "Bring the satchel." While they waited, the tension in the hall grew thick enough to cut. The English delegation stood ready to fight or flee. The MacBride warriors watched for any sign of treachery. Alara stood alone in the center of it all, her fate hanging in the balance. Finn returned with the leather satchel. He handed it to Kieran, who opened it and began examining the contents. His expression grew more and more serious as he read. "These documents," Kieran looked up at Sir Edmund. "They contain detailed information about English positions, planned attacks, supply lines, information that could save thousands of Scottish lives." "Forgeries," Sir Edmund said quickly. "Any good spy could create false documents to support her story. Could a spy forge Lord Blackthorn's personal seal?" Kieran held up a letter bearing an elaborate wax seal. Could she reproduce his handwriting so perfectly? "These documents are real, Sir Edmund." The English knight's face had gone pale. "You have stolen classified military intelligence. That is an act of war." "No," Alara said, finding her voice again. "It is an act of love. Love for Scotland. Love for my people. Love for peace." She looked directly at Kieran. "I was a spy, yes, but not for England. Everything I told Lord Blackthorn was designed to mislead and confuse English forces. The real intelligence I gathered, I was taking to Scottish commanders who could use it to save lives." "And us?" Kieran's voice was raw with pain. "Were we just another deception, another mission to complete?" The question hit her like a sword thrust. Alara looked into his blue eyes and saw her own heart reflected there. "No, you are the most honest thing in my life. When you asked me to marry you, I thought I could use the marriage as cover for my mission. But I never expected to care about you. About any of you." "Pretty words," Finn said harshly. "But how do we know they are true?" "Because," Alara said, reaching into her bodice and pulling out a small dagger, "I choose Scotland over England. I choose truth over deception. I choose love over duty." Before anyone could stop her, she turned towards Sir Edmund. The English knight saw her intent and reached for his sword, but Alara was faster. Years of spy training had made her quick and deadly when necessary. But instead of attacking, she threw the dagger at his feet. "Sir Edmund, you will return to Lord Blackthorn with this message. Tell him that his agent has chosen a side at last. Tell him that Scotland will never surrender, never bow, never accept English rule, and tell him that love is stronger than duty. Truth is stronger than lies, and freedom is stronger than fear." Sir Edmund stared at the dagger, then at Alara. "You are a fool. Blackthorn will hunt you to the ends of the earth for this betrayal." "Let him come," Kieran said, stepping forward to stand beside his wife. "He will find her protected by Clan MacBride and every Scottish sword that can be raised." "And you believe her, after all her lies?" Kieran looked at Alara, and she saw the pain in his eyes slowly giving way to something else. Understanding, perhaps, or hope. "I believe that actions speak louder than words," he said slowly. "She carried intelligence that could devastate English forces, but she was taking it to Scotland, not England. She could have fled when you exposed her, but she stayed to face judgment. She could have tried to return to English protection, but she declared for Scotland instead. He paused. Most importantly, she chose to tell me the truth when she could have maintained her deception. The truth? Sir Edmund laughed bitterly. She has lied about everything since the moment you met her. She lied about her mission, Kieran agreed. But not about her feelings, not about wanting peace, not about caring for our people. He took Elara's hand. Some truths are deeper than facts, Sir Edmund. Some bonds are stronger than deception. Elara felt tears streaming down her face. She had not dared to hope that Kieran would forgive her, much less defend her. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I am so sorry for the lies, for the deception, for the pain I caused." "You had reasons," Kieran said gently. "You were fighting for your people, just as I fight for mine. I cannot fault you for that." "Touching," Sir Edmund said coldly, "but this changes nothing. England will not be deterred by romantic sentiment. We will crush this rebellion, and everyone who supports it." "Then you will have to crush me first," Kieran said, "and every MacBride who stands with me." "And every MacLeod," Elara added, straightening her shoulders. "I am done with deception, done with hiding. I am Elara MacLeod, MacBride, daughter of Duncan MacLeod, wife of Kieran MacBride, and loyal daughter of Scotland. If England wants war, Scotland will give them war." The MacBride warriors cheered and raised their weapons. The sound echoed off the stone walls like thunder. Sir Edmund looked around the hall and realized that his small delegation was vastly outnumbered. "This meeting is over," he said curtly. "We will depart under our flag of truce, but do not expect such courtesy in the future." "Sir Edmund," Kieran called as the English delegation prepared to leave. "Tell Lord Blackthorne that I thank him." "Thank him? For what?" "For sending me the woman who would become my wife and my strongest ally in the fight for Scottish freedom." Kieran put his arm around Elara's waist. "Sometimes the best gifts come in unexpected packages." Sir Edmund's face darkened with rage, but he could do nothing without violating the truce. He and his men left the castle with threats and promises of vengeance. After they were gone, the great hall buzzed with excited conversation. The clan members surrounded Elara with questions, congratulations, and pledges of support. The shock of learning she was a spy had given way to admiration for her courage and clever deception of the English. But Elara barely heard their words. All her attention was focused on Kieran, who stood quietly beside her. She could feel the tension in his body, see the confusion in his eyes. He had defended her publicly, but she knew that private conversations between them would be much more difficult. "Kieran," she began, but he shook his head. "Not here, not now. We will speak privately later." His voice was carefully neutral. "For now, we must plan. The English know about the intelligence you carry. They will move quickly to change their dispositions and counter any advantage we might have gained." He was right, of course. Military necessity came before personal feelings. Elara spent the rest of the day working with Kieran and his advisors to analyze the captured documents and plan how to use the intelligence most effectively. The information was even better than she had hoped. Lord Blackthorne's papers revealed not just troop positions but supply shortages, planned reinforcements, and internal disputes among English commanders. Used properly, this intelligence could help Scottish forces win several crucial battles. "We must get this information to Robert the Bruce immediately," Finn said, studying a map marked with English positions. "His forces could strike here and here, while the English are weakened." "Agreed," Kieran said. "But how? The English will be watching every road between here and Bruce's stronghold." "I know the way," Ilara said quietly. I have traveled those roads many times as a spy. I know which paths are safe, which villages can be trusted, where English patrols concentrate their efforts. You want to carry the intelligence yourself? Kieran asked. I am the logical choice. I know the territory. I speak both languages fluently, and I have contacts among Scottish agents who can help. Ilara met his gaze steadily. This is my mission, Kieran. Let me complete it. Absolutely not. The words came out harder than Kieran intended. It is too dangerous. The English will be hunting you specifically now that your identity is known. All the more reason for me to go quickly before they can organize a manhunt. Ilara, Kieran's voice grew gentle. You are my wife now, my responsibility to protect. I will not send you into danger. I was a spy before I was your wife, she said firmly. This is what I trained for, what I am good at. You cannot protect me by keeping me locked in your castle. The argument continued for hours. Finn supported Ilara's plan, pointing out that she was indeed the most qualified person for the mission. Moira worried about the danger, but agreed that the intelligence was too important to delay. Other clan members were divided. Finally, Kieran made his decision. We will send the intelligence with our fastest riders, multiple copies by different routes to ensure at least one gets through. Ilara will remain here where she is safe. Kieran. Ilara's voice was dangerously quiet. I married you to end the war, not to become your prisoner. You are not my prisoner. You are my wife, and I will not lose you to English swords. You will lose me to resentment if you try to cage me. Ilara stood and faced him across the table. I have lived my entire adult life in service to Scotland. I will not stop now, because I have a husband who thinks marriage means ownership. The words stung, and Kieran's temper flared. I think marriage means caring enough about someone to keep them alive. And I think it means trusting someone enough to let them follow their calling. The argument might have continued, but a commotion in the courtyard interrupted them. A MacBride scout burst into the hall, muddy and exhausted from hard riding. Laird, the scout gasped. English forces are moving north in large numbers. 3 separate columns, all heading toward MacBride lands. The hall fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. Sir Edmund had wasted no time reporting back to his commanders. The English were coming in force, probably to capture or kill Ilara and destroy any evidence of their intelligence failures. How many? Kieran asked grimly. At least 1,000 men in the main column, perhaps 500 each in the other 2. They will reach our borders by tomorrow evening if they maintain their current pace. Kieran looked around the hall at his advisors and warriors. We have perhaps 200 fighting men, counting every farmer who can hold a sword. We cannot win a direct battle against such numbers. We could scatter, Finn suggested. Take to the hills and wage a guerrilla campaign. And abandon our people, our homes. Kieran shook his head. The English would burn everything in revenge. Then what do you suggest? Moira asked. Kieran was quiet for a long moment, then looked directly at Ilara. You could save us all, he said quietly. How? Go to them. Surrender yourself. Tell them you were my prisoner, that you never betrayed England willingly. They might be satisfied with capturing you and leave my people in peace. The suggestion hit the hall like a thunderbolt. Several clan members protested immediately, but Kieran held up his hand for silence. It is the most logical solution, he continued, though the words seemed to cause him physical pain. One life to save hundreds. No. Ilara's voice was absolutely firm. I will not run to the English, and I will not pretend to be their victim. I made my choice when I declared for Scotland. Then we fight. Finn said grimly, and we die with honor. Or, Alara said slowly, we use the intelligence to win. What do you mean? Kieran asked. Alara moved to the map and pointed to several marked positions. These documents show where English supply trains will be tomorrow and the next day. Their main force is moving fast, which means they are traveling light. They expect to resupply from these predetermined locations. Understanding dawned on several faces around the table. If we could disrupt their supply lines, Finn began. They would be stranded in hostile territory with limited food and ammunition, Alara finished. 1,000 men become much less dangerous when they are hungry and running low on arrows. It could work, Kieran said thoughtfully, but we would need to strike at multiple locations simultaneously. That would require splitting our forces even thinner. Not if we have help. Alara looked around the room. How quickly could you get word to your allied clans? MacLeod, MacDonald, Campbell. A day, perhaps two if we use fast riders and signal fires. Do it. Tell them that England's most closely guarded secrets are in Scottish hands. Tell them that one coordinated strike could cripple English forces for months. Tell them that this is their chance to drive the invaders back across the border. The plan was audacious and dangerous. It required perfect timing and flawless execution, but it offered something that mere defense did not. The possibility of victory instead of honorable defeat. What about the main English force? Moira asked. Even without supplies, 1,000 men can do considerable damage before hunger stops them. That is where Castle MacBride becomes crucial, Alara said. We make it too expensive for them to attack. Every assault costs them men they cannot afford to lose. Every day they spend besieging us is another day without proper food or reinforcement. A siege, Kieran mused. It could work if our walls hold and our allies strike quickly. The rest of the night was spent in frantic preparation. Messages went out to allied clans with details of the plan and pleas for immediate assistance. Weapons were sharpened and armor repaired. Food and water were stockpiled within the castle walls. Non-combatants were moved to the most secure parts of the fortress. Alara worked alongside the other women, helping to prepare medical supplies and organize the defense of the inner keep, but her mind kept drifting to Kieran. They had not spoken privately since their argument about her traveling to deliver the intelligence. The crisis had pushed personal matters aside, but she knew they would have to deal with the lies and hurt between them eventually. If they survived the coming battle, dawn brought the sound of war horns echoing across the glen. The English forces had arrived sooner than expected, probably pushing through the night to catch the castle unprepared. But MacBride sentries had spotted them in time, and the castle gates were sealed tight. Alara stood on the battlements beside Kieran, watching as English soldiers spread across the valley below. There were indeed many hundreds of them, far more than Castle MacBride could hope to defeat in open battle. Impressive, Kieran said quietly. They must want you very badly to commit so many troops, or they want to make an example of MacBride hospitality to spies, Alara replied. Do you regret it? Marrying me, I mean. Your life would be simpler if you had refused my proposal in the forest. Alara looked at his profile as he studied the enemy positions. Even facing overwhelming odds, he remained calm and thoughtful. She had never met anyone quite like him. No, she said simply. I do not regret it. Even though I tried to keep you from completing your mission, you were trying to protect me. I understand that now. Alara touched his arm gently. Kieran, about the things I said yesterday. You were right. Marriage should not mean ownership or imprisonment. He turned to face her. If we survive this, you may travel wherever your conscience leads you. I will not try to stop you again. And if I choose to stay, A smile flickered across his serious face. "Then I will be the happiest man in Scotland." Before Elara could respond, a trumpet sounded from the English lines. A small delegation rode forward under a flag of truce, stopping just outside bow range of the castle walls. "Laird MacBride," the voice carried clearly in the morning air. "I am Sir Geoffrey Montague, commander of His Majesty's forces in this region. I call upon you to surrender the spy Elara MacLeod and avoid unnecessary bloodshed." Kieran stepped to the edge of the battlements where he could be clearly seen. "Sir Geoffrey, I am Kieran MacBride, and the woman you seek is my wife, Lady MacBride. She is under the protection of my clan and my sword. She is a traitor to the crown and a thief of military secrets. Surrender her now, and your people will be spared. And if I refuse, then we will take her by force, and your castle will burn." Kieran was quiet for a moment, then raised his voice again. "Sir Geoffrey, I counter with an offer of my own. Withdraw your forces from Scottish soil, and we will allow you to depart unharmed." Laughter drifted up from the English lines. "You are outnumbered 5-1, MacBride. What makes you think you can dictate terms?" This, Kieran held up one of the captured intelligence documents. Complete details of English positions, supply lines, and battle plans. Information that has already been sent to every Scottish commander between here and Edinburgh. The laughter stopped abruptly. "You are bluffing," Sir Geoffrey called, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. "Am I? Tell me, Sir Geoffrey, when did your supply train last leave Carlisle? What route was it instructed to take? How many men guard it?" Kieran's voice grew mocking. "Shall I continue, or do you begin to understand your situation?" A long silence stretched between the castle and the English lines. Lara could see men on horseback gathered around Sir Geoffrey, probably his officers advising him. Finally, the English commander spoke again. "Even if you possess such intelligence, it will not save you. We have men enough to storm your walls, supplies enough to outlast any siege." "Do you?" Kieran asked. "Are you certain?" Another silence, then Sir Geoffrey played his final card. "We have prisoners, MacBride, Scottish soldiers captured in recent battles. Surrender the spy, or they die." The threat hit Elara like a physical blow. Innocent men would suffer for her choices. She started to step forward, to offer herself in exchange for their lives. But Kieran caught her arm. "How do we know these prisoners exist?" he called down. "Produce them, and we will consider your terms." A few minutes later, a group of English soldiers dragged 3 bound men into view. Even at a distance, it was clear they were Scottish. Their clothes, their bearing, their defiant expressions marked them as Highland warriors. "There are a dozen more where these came from," Sir Geoffrey shouted. "All will die unless you comply." Elara felt sick. Those men were suffering because of her mission, her choices. How could she let them die to save herself? "Kieran," she whispered, "I have to." "No." His grip on her arm tightened. "You surrender now, and their deaths mean nothing. Those men are warriors. They knew the risks when they chose to fight for Scotland. But if I could save them, you cannot. Even if you surrender, do you think the English will simply let them go? They are prisoners of war, not bargaining chips." Kieran's voice was gentle but firm. "Your sacrifice would be meaningless, and Scotland would lose the intelligence you carry." He was right, but that did not make the choice any easier. Neela watched the 3 prisoners standing straight and proud, despite their bonds. They were willing to die for Scotland. Could she ask any less of herself? "1 hour," Sir Geoffrey called. "You have 1 hour to decide. After that, we begin executing prisoners and preparing to storm your walls." The English delegation withdrew, leaving the castle defenders to contemplate their options. Kieran called his advisors together to discuss strategy, but there was little to discuss. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and running out of time. "Any word from our allies?" Kieran asked. "Signal fires have been lit on 3 peaks," Finn reported. "That means MacLeod and MacDonald forces are moving. No word yet from the Campbells. How long before they can reach the supply routes?" "By nightfall if they push hard." "That might be too late." Kieran looked out at the English forces. "They could overrun us in half that time if they attack in earnest. Then we make it too costly for them to try." Old Duncan said grimly, "Every Scottish arrow finds an English heart. Every sword stroke counts for 3. We make them pay in blood for every stone of these walls." The hour passed all too quickly. As the sun climbed higher, Sir Geoffrey's voice rang out across the valley once more. "Your time is up, MacBride. What is your answer?" Kieran stepped to the battlements with Elara beside him. She had insisted on being present, on facing the consequences of her choices. Together they looked down at the hundreds of English soldiers arrayed against them. "Sir Geoffrey," Kieran's voice carried clearly, "my answer is the same as it has always been. Scotland will never surrender to English tyranny. Lady MacBride remains under my protection, and these walls will stand against any assault you care to make. Then you have chosen death for your people and these prisoners." "We have chosen freedom," Elara called down, her voice ringing with conviction. "And we will pay whatever price freedom demands." A roar went up from the MacBride defenders on the walls. Swords flashed in the sunlight as warriors saluted their defiant lady. The sound echoed off the castle stones like thunder. Sir Geoffrey raised his hand, and English archers stepped forward with arrows nocked. The first volley would signal the beginning of the assault. But before he could give the order, a new sound drifted across the valley. War horns. But not English ones. These had the wild, fierce note of Highland battle calls. Everyone, English and Scottish alike, turned toward the sound. Over the southern ridge came a sight that made Elara's heart soar. Hundreds of Highland warriors in clan colours, moving at a run toward the valley. The MacLeods had arrived, and they were not alone. MacDonalds and Campbells ran beside them, their war cries echoing off the hills. "Impossible," Sir Geoffrey breathed, but his voice carried in the sudden silence. "Is it?" Kieran called down mockingly. "Did you think one clan would face your army alone? This is Scotland, Sir Geoffrey. We stand together or not at all." The English force, so confident moments before, now found themselves caught between a fortified castle and several hundred Highland warriors. Worse, they had no idea how many more Scottish forces might be approaching. Sir Geoffrey made a quick decision. "Retreat to the high ground," he shouted. "Reform defensive position." But it was too late for an orderly retreat. The Highland clans hit the English lines like a thunderbolt, cutting through their formations with sword and spear. The valley filled with the clash of weapons and the cries of fighting men. Kieran turned to his own warriors. "Open the gates. MacBride rides to join the battle." The castle gates swung wide, and MacBride warriors poured out to join their allies. Kieran paused only long enough to kiss Elara fiercely. "Stay within the walls," he commanded. "Promise me." "I promise," she said, though her heart ached to join the fight. Kieran and his men charged into the battle, their war cries adding to the din. Elara watched from the battlements as Scottish and English forces clashed in deadly combat. The outcome was no longer certain. The Highland clans had evened the odds considerably. The battle raged for hours. At first, the fighting was chaotic as English forces tried to regroup while under constant pressure from Scottish attacks. But gradually, organization emerged from the chaos. The English managed to form defensive squares on the higher ground, using their superior numbers to hold off Scottish charges. But they were paying a heavy price. Scottish warriors, fighting for their homeland and their freedom, gave no quarter. Every English position cost blood to take, and blood to hold. As the afternoon wore on, Alara began to see the larger pattern of the battle. The English were slowly being pushed back, but they were not broken. If they could hold their positions until dark, they might be able to withdraw in good order. That was when the signal fires began to blaze on the distant peaks. Alara knew what they meant, even if the English did not. MacLeod, MacDonald, and Campbell forces had struck the English supply trains simultaneously. Wagons full of food, arrows, and equipment were burning across southern Scotland. Sir Geoffrey's army was now truly stranded, cut off from reinforcement and resupply. The English commander must have understood his situation, because his tactics suddenly changed. Instead of trying to hold ground, his forces began a fighting retreat toward the south. They were trying to escape before the trap closed completely, but the Highland clans were not about to let them go. Fresh war cries echoed across the valley as more Scottish reinforcements appeared on the ridges. Clan after clan had answered the call to arms, until the English found themselves facing not hundreds, but thousands of Highland warriors. The retreat became a rout. English soldiers threw down their weapons and fled toward the border. Some tried to surrender, but Highland justice was harsh for invaders who had threatened Scottish homes and families. By sunset, the valley was quiet, except for the moans of wounded men and the victory songs of the clans. The English force had been shattered. Those who survived the battle would carry word back to their commanders that Scotland was very much alive and ready to fight. Kieran returned to the castle as the stars came out. He was bloodied but unharmed, his sword stained with English blood. Alara ran to meet him in the courtyard, and they embraced as if they had been separated for years instead of hours. "It is over," he said simply. "The English are broken. It will be months before they can mount another offensive like this one." "The prisoners?" Alara asked. "Safe. We freed them in the first charge." Kieran's smile was fierce with pride. "They fought beside us once their bonds were cut. Good men, all of them." That night, Castle MacBride hosted the greatest celebration in its history. Warriors from half a dozen clans filled the great hall, sharing food, drink, and stories of the battle. Songs were sung in honor of fallen heroes and living legends alike. But the greatest celebration was not in the great hall. It was in the quiet of Kieran and Alara's chamber, where husband and wife finally spoke honestly about everything that lay between them. "I should have told you the truth from the beginning," Alara said as they sat before the fire. "You deserved better than lies and deception." "You were protecting your mission and your people," Kieran replied. "I understand that now. You did what you thought was necessary. But I hurt you. I hurt all of you." You did. But you also saved us." Kieran took her hands in his. "The intelligence you carried, the alliances you helped forge, they gave us victory today. Without your sacrifice, we would have faced that English army alone." "It was not a sacrifice," Alara said quietly. "It was a choice, and I would make the same choice again. Even knowing the pain it would cause. Even then, because some things are worth fighting for, worth suffering for." She looked into his blue eyes. "Freedom, honor, love." "Love?" Kieran's voice was gentle. "I love you," Alara said simply. "I do not know when it happened, but somewhere between your proposal in the forest and this moment, I fell in love with your honor, your courage, your dream of peace. That is why I could not surrender to the English. Not because of my mission, but because I could not bear to leave you." Kieran cupped her face in his hands. And I love you, spy or not, MacLeod or MacBride, complicated past and all. You are the bravest, most magnificent woman I have ever known." They kissed then, and it was nothing like their wedding kiss before witnesses. This was private, intimate, real. It tasted of truth and promises and hope for the future. When they finally broke apart, Ilara smiled against his lips. "So what happens now? The war is not over, even if we won this battle. Now we build on what we have gained." Today showed that the clans can unite when they have reason to hope. Your intelligence proved that English forces can be defeated. Together we can drive the invaders from Scottish soil once and for all. And us? What happens to us? We keep the promise I made in the forest. We work to end this war, to build a lasting peace. Kieran's eyes grew warm, and we learn to be husband and wife in truth, not just in name. "That might take some time," Ilara said, with a soft laugh. "I am not sure I remember how to be honest all the time." "Then we will learn together. We have all the time in the world." "Do we?" "There will be other battles, other missions. Lord Blackthorn will not give up easily. Let him come. Scotland is awake now, united as it has not been in years. We will face whatever comes together." Ilara rested her head against Kieran's shoulder and looked into the fire. For the first time in years, she felt truly at peace. She was no longer caught between competing loyalties, no longer torn between duty and desire. She had found her place at last. "Kieran, when you offered to marry me to end the war, did you really think it would work?" He was quiet for a moment. "I hoped, but I think what I really wanted was an excuse to marry a brave, beautiful woman who appeared in my forest like a gift from the gods. And now? Do you think our marriage will help end the war?" "It already has. You brought intelligence that won us a crucial victory. You helped unite the clans in common cause. You showed that English and Scottish blood can flow in the same heart without conflict." Kieran kissed the top of her head. "Most importantly, you gave me hope that peace is possible, even if the fighting continues. Even then, because now I fight not just to defend Scotland, but to build something better. A Scotland where our children can grow up free, where clans unite instead of feud, where former enemies become allies." His voice grew soft with wonder. "A Scotland where a Highland laird can marry a MacLeod spy and create a love story instead of a tragedy." Ilara smiled and snuggled closer to her husband. Outside the castle walls, she could hear the voices of celebrating warriors, the songs of victory and hope, but inside their chamber, all was quiet and peaceful. The war was not over. There would be more battles, more hardships, more difficult choices ahead. But for now, in this moment, they had won something precious: time to love, time to build, time to dream of better days. "Marry me to end the war," Kieran had said in the forest, not knowing she was his enemy's spy. But in the end, it had not mattered whose spy she was or what secrets she carried. What mattered was the choice they made to trust each other, to stand together, to build something stronger than deception or duty. Their marriage had not ended the war, but it had changed everything. It had united clans, inspired victory, and proven that love could indeed triumph over fear and hatred. And as Ilara drifted off to sleep in her husband's arms, she knew that whatever tomorrow brought, they would face it together. The spy and the laird, the MacLeod and the MacBride, the woman who had chosen love over lies and the man who had chosen hope over despair. In the end, that was worth more than any intelligence, more valuable than any military victory. It was the foundation on which lasting peace could be built, one heart at a time, one choice at a time, one love at a time. The war would end, eventually, as all wars do. But the love between Kieran and Alara McBride would endure, a testament to the power of trust, the strength of choice, and the triumph of hope over fear. And in the years to come, when bards sang of the great Highland victory at Castle McBride, they would remember not just the clash of swords and the courage of warriors, but the love story that began with a marriage proposal in a forest and grew into something that changed the fate of nations. The spy had chosen her side at last, and Scotland was stronger for it.